Oh, okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
Um, it'll give me time. Normally I don't go live. I mean, I go live when I say I do, but we're getting too much into a lot of the topics that I know if I don't stop it or go live right now, we're gonna talk about those things and people are gonna miss out on it. But because I did go early, um, it's gonna give me an opportunity to recognize who's here with us, and it'll let me do a little bit of the housekeeping, and then we'll start getting into this because I know the conversation was going there, and it's like, oh, wait, I got to pump the brakes on this because it's a lot of stuff. Yeah, and the thing is, at the bare minimum, if people weren't here for the beginning, now at least it's on tape or not tape, but it's recorded, so they can go back and listen to it, and they don't miss out on what we were talking about. But I just want to start off by acknowledging some of the people that are joining us today. Yes, we did start early. I intentionally did that because our conversation was getting too much into what I didn't want to leave on the cutting floor, which usually happens with other guests. So instead of doing that, I jumped the gun, went like 10 minutes early than we normally was scheduled to start. I know that's gonna throw off some of the people, but at least it'll give them time to, at least if they don't catch this beginning of it, they'll be able to see it on the replay. So first of all, I want to thank Why Are We Always Yelling? Sam, thank you for joining us. Cam Jam, thank you, ma'am. KJ, thank you for being here. You guys are being rewarded for being early. Jose, Joy of Fish Keeping, thank you so much for joining us. Polly, sweet Polly, thanks for being here. Vinoski just jumped in. Ed from Ed Aquatic Exotics is also with us. Linda Worth came in right now. And yeah, I did start a little bit early. I intentionally did that because we were having a really good conversation and I wasn't going to be able to stop it. And I was very afraid that part of the conversation was probably not going to be able to make it back to the live. So instead of doing that, I jumped the gun a little bit. I think we're a few minutes early, but that's okay. People will start coming in here, and they can at least now if watch it on the replay. But Scott Scapes, thanks for coming in. Again, as you guys are well aware, today I have the opportunity to have a conversation with Jungle Nook. It was really interesting trying to get a hold of you because there wasn't much ways. I mean, if it wasn't for you actually watching the episode of The Plug, I don't know how I would have been able to make contact with you because based off of that, you came into the following live stream that I did, and I was able to reach out that way. And then eventually we connected with an email. But I was for a while there. I was thinking,
I seen you found me on Facebook.
Yes.
And the funny thing about that, I started the channel in 2022 and never went back to it. And I just happened recently to go, and there was a message from you. How do I get a hold of you?
Well, I was looking all over the social medias. I even think I looked in Instagram. I don't know. Do you have an Instagram account? Yeah,
You think I would be on other platforms, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was just trying. I was just trying wherever I could find a way to either get an email or I even looked to see if you have a website for sale, but you don't have a website, or do you?
This is just a hobby for fun.
But yeah, I was really I was kind of because I did the plug for your channel probably about 2 or 3 weeks before you finally I guess were able to watch it or got the notification, and then you popped up in one of the live streams, and it just so happened in that live stream I think I was talking about potential future guests that I wanted to have on. It was just all weird coincidence.
Yeah,
I was like,
you were like, I was just talking about you, and I backed it up, and I knew you wanted me on, but I move all my stuff in for the winter that I have outside. Plus, with how the weather is here, if the weather's okay where I can work outside, I got to be outside. So I was really busy. I knew I was going to get a hold of you, but I was just waiting until I knew I had an opportunity to actually do this.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start off with this? Why don't you give us a little bit of your background, and so that people that might not know you get a little bit of insight of your channel and what you do.
Okay, so my channel, it's pretty much divided up between house plants and particularly tropical varieties, and also freshwater aquariums with a natural theme to them. Low tech, low maintenance, and I'm trying to develop the food chain, not necessarily the food web, which is basically just, some stuff that lives in your tank that can feed your fish. I'm trying to establish an actual food chain, the whole chain. Well, my plants here, the funny thing about my plants, I have been growing plants. I'm an outdoor gardener and landscaper by trade for almost my whole life. My parents were into it, my grandparents. The house plants, though, is something I always wanted to do. And when we moved in here, I had room. But I wasn't growing the plants for the same reasons that a lot of people have house plants. Just like my aquariums are different than why a lot of people have aquariums. Because I have experience growing plants outside, I thought, and I've had house plants, throughout my life, nothing to this extent. But I thought that I could get the plants to grow even better if I reconditioned the environment and growing conditions where they naturally come from, including what's in the soil and all of that. I thought I could get the plants to grow more how they grow naturally, because most of our house plants that we grow do not look the way they look where they come from naturally. They actually look different. They grow differently. And I did a lot of experimentation for nearly 4 years to do that and to share what I learned, totally thinking I was going to have information for people, but it ended up being the opposite. I was wrong in what I thought. I was wrong in what the environment was where they were coming from, and I was wrong to think that tropical houseplants enjoy growing in tropical climates. I thought that's where they grew, that's what they like. But if you think about people, there's a lot of people and animals that live in a tropical area, and in the summer, they're not happy being there. So, yeah, it was really interesting growing all this stuff to see how it grew and different ways of growing it. And that's why a lot of the advice and the care tips that I give are totally different from what you'll read in some of the older books or what Google's going to tell you to do. And it's real interesting because I've seen the patterns on YouTube. I think a lot of the information that's presented on YouTube is it was what was thought was the best way of doing things a long time ago. And you do get good results doing some of these things that we used to be taught and are still taught. I think a lot of YouTubers are watching other people's channels, they're Googling stuff, they're getting old information, and it's just being regurgitated. And I mean, I can get into some pretty interesting plant care stuff, but I couldn't do plant care for my first 1 to 2 years because I was still experimenting. So a lot of people thought my channel was an aquatic channel.
That's what I was going to ask you. Was it did you start off? What was first, the aquariums or the plants?
Technically behind the scenes, it was the plants.
Okay.
But I couldn't give the information that I wanted to without first having people see, because my plants stay pretty much in the spot they're at year after year. I needed to have a channel where people could see very small plants coming into the house or even cuttings and see how rapidly I could get them to grow. And I was doing all kinds of aquarium stuff. And I made sure that in all my shots and stuff, you were seeing these plants over time. so that when I started putting out some unorthodox care advice, I had some proof to back me up. But at the same time, I did want to experiment with, you're never really going to have a true ecosystem in a fish tank, but experiment to see what it takes to have as close to an actual ecosystem in an aquarium. And it takes years for a tank to develop. So I had to hurry up and get those tanks done. So it worked out good. I was showing because I did some aquascaping videos and different DIY videos and stuff for the aquariums, but that was just so I had content while my plants were growing, and I was continuing my experimentation with the plants.
Yeah, no, I came across your channel, I guess a while into it, and maybe you can tell me how long you were into this. The reason I found your channel is because there was a time where I was trying to find out information on self-sustaining aquariums, and you were doing something that was kind of inspired by father fish sort of techniques, and that's how that was the very first video that I watched from you, because it kind of, you know, it was kind of what I was looking for, information on that type of aquarium keeping. But once I got there, I was hooked, because I seen all the plants. I mean, I can't grow, well, I'm starting to grow plants, but I couldn't keep I couldn't keep a plant alive to save my life.
After this video, you'll be able to grow plants. After this video.
And
it's so much simpler than you could believe. There's just so much marketing and bad information out there that makes things seem more complicated. It is so simple. There's just some real simple fundamentals to follow, and it's kind of crazy how easy it is.
Yeah, one of my very first negative experiences with houseplants is root rot, overwatering, and that I didn't realize how important the soil composition that you have in that plant is relatively, you know, goes hand in hand with the success you're going to have. My biggest problem is that I kept them in the soil that you bought them at the store, because my assumption was that's got to be the right soil. They're selling it to me.
It's 100% the right soil in most situations for 6 months to a year, and then it's wrong. Like when you first plant a plant, you want a soil that retains moisture longer compared to a more mature plant. Because like you said, root rot from overwatering. See, now that's one of the misconceptions.
Okay.
Root rot's not caused by overwatering. Root rot is caused by inadequate drainage. I water my houseplants, my tropical varieties, pretty much every single day, and I give them more water than they could ever consume. But I have almost no risk of root rot because of how I make my own soil. My soil can only hold so much water. All the drains through the soil and out of the pot. So it's really not overwatering, it's inadequate drainage. The soil will hold on to too much water too long, and now there's no air pockets. Rotting roots is not root rot. Rotting roots is how root rot can affect your plant. Okay, so root rot's actually a pathogen. It is a harmful, I think it's a fungus. I think it's a fungus. Could be a bacteria, fungus. But it survives in, it has to be in really wet soil. And it also has to have an extremely low oxygen content. And plants' roots need oxygen, or the roots will die and rot. But that's not root rot. If the root dies and rots, the plant just shuts that off, and that's the end of it. But the pathogens, if your soil continues to stay overhydrated, that pathogen begins to multiply, and it eats organic material, including the dead root. And it will consume that dead root. And if the the root itself has not had a chance to seal the wound between the healthy part of the root and the root that rotted. That's a wound. Just like if you get a cut and you can get an infection, root rot's actually an infection that when it comes into contact with a healthy part of the plant that it cannot consume, but it's a wound and it can get in there, it infects it, and then it kills the healthy part of the root because it's creating its own future food supply. And it will follow it right up the root into the stem and kill the plant. But again, root rot's not from overwatering, technically, it's from inadequate drainage. It's a little different.
That makes a lot of sense, because one of the things that I was not understanding is how you can take a house plant like what you have, knock off all the dirt, put those roots in constant water, and yet they'll survive and thrive. I mean, that's kind of what I got going on back here, what I was telling you earlier. And I was like, there's got to be something. There's something that's happening. And you just explained it to me, that is causing those roots to
still these harmful pathogens. There can still be some of those harmful pathogens in the water, but those are it's still a pathogen, but it's a different type, and there's a lot more of them in soil than what's in water. But again, there also has to be an actual wound. The pathogens can be all over a healthy root and they can't penetrate. Has to be a wound. And even if the pathogen does get into the plant, if you have a healthy plant, a lot of times it will fight that off and you'll never even know. Especially if you allow your soil to dry out and now it drops the numbers of those pathogens in there, and you have a healthy plant that's not stressed, it's not starving, it's getting enough light, as an immune system. Plants get a lot of sicknesses and illnesses and viruses and parasites, and just like your aquatic plant or your fish. But if they're healthy, they can actually fight off a lot of stuff, and you would never even know.
Okay. Now, here's something that I've always been kind of curious, because I equated the soil that you get in your plants as being the source of nutrients that would feed that plant. But then that logic goes away or get thrown out the window, because you're being able to take that same plant, put it in water, and still being able to receive the nutrients that it needs. So it's the roots really don't uptake any of the nutrients. Is it more because of photosynthesis, or is there
the roots and sometimes foliage does absorb nutrients, but it does not absorb nutrients out of the soil. The water absorbs and pulls the nutrients out of the soil, making the water nutrient rich. The plant will then absorb nutrient rich water if there's enough water for it to be able to absorb the water. Just having the soil doesn't guarantee there's enough in it for the plant to absorb it. Now, nutrients, here's the funny thing, because you'll hear a lot about organics. Well, all organics is material that's being broken down and decomposed smaller and smaller and smaller until it's small enough, microscopic, to be absorbed by the roots. Technically, that organic material is not yet the nutrients for the plant. It has to be eaten by other things. It has to be eaten by other things, broken down into nutrients. If that answers the question. I think that was the question.
Yeah. So how true is it then that having plants where the root system is in the water in your aquarium, and the foliage is immersed, is it really consuming the excess nitrates in your aquarium, or is that just a false information?
Well, I'm not sure if you're talking about true aquatic plants or the ones growing out of the top, but it's the same.
No, I'm
Same
talking about
thing.
the ones growing out of the top because that like the whole thing you commonly hear is if you add pothos to your aquarium, it'll help you consume the excess nitrates in there.
If you're having an okay, you can do that, but you ought to. I already have plants around the house where I take cuttings and they're just hanging out of the tank, so they already have root structures grown.
Okay.
If I see a slowdown of my true plants, not algae, but true plants, I see them starting to slow down in their growth. So I do use root tabs, but I
Okay.
don't use liquid anything to dose. I just overfeed with food, fish food, to do that. But if I see my plants not doing so good and I think it's a nutrient deficiency, and I have a tank because I grow, we'll go around later. Look, I have algae that I actually tend to and grow, beautiful algae. But I see that it's getting out of control. I'll just take those pothos or whatever out of the tank that I think is lacking nutrients, and I'll put that plant into a tank where the algae's getting a little out of control because there's too much nutrients. And I'll see my plants start to do, my aquatic plants start to do better, and I'll see my algae start to shrink over time. If you're trying to get rid of algae, do a water change when you put those plants in there, though, just to get that nutrients down quicker.
So that any excess nutrients that are being produced, the plants will consume. Is that the idea of doing that water change?
Yeah, because I mean, if the algae is already growing and it's there's excess nutrients in there, you could just put those plants in there and they'll start to absorb it. But if you want to, a lot of people don't grow algae like I do. They don't want algae. So if you are putting your cuttings in there to control the algae or start to eliminate it, might as well do a water change and immediately get rid of that excess nutrients. And maybe even do some more partial water changes over time, and your algae will disappear quicker. What I do for my algae, I only remove algae it's getting too large, but I also always remove algae that I don't think is attractive.
Yeah.
And what happens is the more attractive algae plus my true plants will outcompete that other type. Like I get rid of hair algae very easily by just removing it periodically, letting the other algae and plants grow. Yeah, it does though. House plants are very efficient at getting rid of nutrients out of the water column, but it's also going to depend upon how big the cutting is and how large that existing root structure already is. You know, the bigger it is, the quicker, the more nutrients it's going to absorb.
Okay. There's a question here from one of the people in the chat. They're saying I have a philodendron that has only been growing a couple of inches over a year. I have the roots in the aquarium. It seems to be struggling. Is that just simply a lack of nutrients in the water column?
Is it how large is it? What size is the aquarium that it's in? And how many fish are in the aquarium?
Okay.
I would need a little more information to.
Yeah. So do house plants?
If it's not growing quick enough, then it probably either doesn't have enough light,
Okay.
enough nutrients, or it's a combination of the two. I mean, that would be why it would be growing. I mean, most cuttings that I put into a tank, I would, every couple of months, I have to trim the roots because they're growing so good. But a lot of people will have their plants growing out of the aquarium and they have a light going into the aquarium and maybe not necessarily a light on the house plant growing out of the aquarium.
Now that you touched on that subject, when it comes to lighting for houseplants, there's a whole debate when it comes to aquariums that you got to have really good light quality to be able to grow aquatic plants. Is that the same situation with houseplants, or as long as it's just lighting, period?
Well, the answer for houseplants and aquariums are the same. It depends on the needs of the plant.
Okay.
But when talking about an aquarium, you got to make sure that light is spec'd out for this. It has to be an aquarium grow light, is mine. It does not have to be an aquarium grow light. I mean, there are things like mosses and Java fern Nubis. I mean, you could put an actual LED non-grow light, shop light that costs you $10 and grow amazing plants like that. But plants that actually require a higher intensity of light, you don't want to just buy a real high intensity light, because what if you're buying a real good light that's for a tank that's a foot deep, and you put it onto a tank that's 2 feet deep.
Okay.
The intensity of the light is dramatically decreasing before it ever gets to the plant. Lighting does matter. Low light plants, yeah, low lights, you'd be surprised at just how low of a light they can grow in. But high light plants do require high light, especially if you're giving them CO2. If you have a plant that requires high light, that high light's not going to do no good without CO2. But also, okay, so the plant's not going to do is it going to grow any faster with the high light if it's not getting the CO2, and vice versa. Don't use CO2 if you're not giving it good lighting.
Oh, okay. Give me a second. Let me close my garage door because the sun's going down. Hold on.
Yeah. So, tell me about the Jungle Nook. I'm not an expert on nothing. I am an hobbyist.
Let me see. Here's a little bit follow up to the information that they had provided regarding that plant. He says the plant is about the softball size. It's in a 20 long with a dozen fish. It gets natural sunlight a couple hours a day.
Okay. Well, any plant that you have in your house, I mean, what did he say it was? He said it was a pothos or a monstera?
Yeah, it was a philodendron. I think it was a philodendron.
He's referring to a couple of hours, even if it's actual sunlight hitting the plant, and he's referring to only 3 or 4 hours. With that amount of fish, 3 or 4, if it's only getting 3 or 4 hours of light, then it's not getting enough light.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anytime you hear a house plant, well, for one thing, there's no such thing as a house plant. No plant has evolved growing. Any plant that you're growing in your house is a house plant. My advice is never grow a full sun plant in your house, even in front of a window. You're just not going to get enough light. But when you get a tag, I see it so many times. You'll see a tag that's giving you the care instructions. They're giving you the absolute bare minimum amount of care so the plant will survive, not thrive. A lot of times it will even die, but it might take 6 months. They're making you think, oh, this is a real easy plant to take care of. Every plant that you're growing, regardless what it is, you want to give it at least 5, 6, 7 hours of light.
So it's no different than aquarium plants.
As much light as you can.
So it's no different than having aquarium plants. It's basically the same care.
There's a big difference, though. They have an endless supply of CO2.
Yes.
So they can grow quick. That's one of our big limiting factors in our tanks is how much CO2 is about.
See, I was always curious because they sell you plants as supposedly being tropical plants, and I know we were kind of talking about this before we went live a little bit. And when they say tropical plants, immediately what I think of is like a jungle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in a jungle setting, you usually have very tall canopies of trees that cover most of the sunlight. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these plants are growing under these canopies and not necessarily getting a whole bunch of sunlight. So I've always thought that, they could do better with just that's why they do well with just incandescent bulbs and stuff like that. You can get them to grow. But am I really dumb sizing that? Is there just more to it?
I'm not real good with describing the lighting, but here's the thing. For one thing, all light scatters, even light that we don't see. So when the sun is out, there's more light available than what we see with our eye.
Okay.
In shady spot outside in the woods, a shady spot in the woods is actually getting more intense light, a higher quality light, than your plants that are in the brightest spot of your house, even with the light coming through the window. The shady spot outside has better light than the brightest spot in your house.
Okay.
And got to remember too that at least in the summer, late spring, all of summer, and fall, there is a lot of natural hours. There's a lot of hours of natural daylight. So even if they're not in a very intense spot with light, they're getting light for a long period of time. When we start showing people the plants here, I want to be very honest with everybody because I don't have many windows and my house is not positioned to catch the light. My plants do as well as they do because I move as many of them outside as I can in the summer into the shade, but I have an unusual amount of grow lights for someone's house.
Okay.
But I will say this too. Here's the thing about grow lights too. All grow lights, I shouldn't say all, but pretty much all grow lights are designed to only be 12 to 16 inches above the plant.
Oh, okay.
And obviously all of these fixtures are way too high. I do have a light meter, and as you go each inch, you see the intensity dropping. So what I did is I thought, hey, well, in the wild, there's some real shady spots where these varieties grow. They're just getting a lot of hours of light. I don't want to see my lights. I mean, you can see them, and when people walk into this room, you'll notice them more than me. I'm kind of oblivious. All my lights are at the ceiling, way too far away. What I did is I just kept buying more lights. I didn't want to see them. I want to think I'm in the jungle. So, yeah, and the light spectrum matters. Don't get too hung up on the light spectrum, though. I do 6400K. That's Kelvin. That's not the intensity. That's looms. The K is the Kelvin. That's the spectrum. The higher the spectrum, which I think 6400 might be the highest, that is for foliage. That is reproducing spring and early summer, the wavelength of light that we're getting from the sun. And then I believe it drops down into, it just keeps dropping, and that's for it's for like flowering, but fruiting, vegetables, things like that.
Okay.
It's a different light spectrum. It's given a different type of light that helps the plant engage to create different types of compounds in photosynthesis than what it is concentrating on in the spring. Because in the spring, plants are trying to grow as much foliage as they can, so that when the seasons change and the spectrum of light from the sun changes, it has all this foliage to now take that spectrum and through photosynthesis create new compounds for the fruit, the food,
Okay. I because I know when I run most of my not only my fish tanks, but the plants that I've started growing immersed from the tanks, I'm just using your regular shop lights. And I think, see, I thought Kelvin's was more related to the temperature of the color, whether it looked orange or blue.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. So I know these shop lights are either 5,000 Kelvin or 5,500 Kelvin, but they don't exceed, they don't go beyond that. So they have that bluish coloration to them.
Shop lights above some of my plants growing out of the aquariums, but using a non-grow light shop light, that is fine, but the plant may not put out any new foliage, or if it does, you'll be lucky to get a leaf or two a year. I'll show you some plants that are like maybe 2 years old, and during 2 years might have put out one new leaf because it's the wrong spectrum. It's not the light that it needs to take chlorophyll plus the nutrients and really create the new compounds that it needs. But it's enough for the plant to be able to hold on to its foliage, The roots are still growing out and the plant is absorbing nutrients out of the tanks. I have them ones in very small tanks because I don't want them robbing all the nutrients from my plants, or my aquatic plants.
Oh, okay.
The tank we'll look at later on over here, that's an actual grow light, but that's because I put something kind of cool together and I want the plants to really flourish.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I was trying to, well, what I'm trying to accomplish with the one that's right directly behind me on the top is I want to do sort of like a plant wall with the plants just as themselves growing up to whatever heights they're going to go through. But I'm still trying to figure out which plants I can pull off with growing in the aquarium. Like I said, it's all been trial and error. I know one of the conversations that we were having when I told you we need to go live, and it's something that frustrates me a lot, is trying to find names of these plants to be able to research them. Like for example, I'll go to one of the big box stores, whether it's like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, because that's usually where I get my plants from. Is
Yeah,
is
me
is
too. Me too.
is those? But you look at the label, and it never gives you a name of the plant. It doesn't give you the scientific name. Seldom does it does it does. And if it has a name, I find it to be like a generic name. Like it'll say philodendron, but there's so many different philodendrons. Are they all the same, or do they, depending on which one it is, requires different care?
Well, okay. As far as the name that they're putting on the plant, they have to be as vague and broad based as possible because they're not allowed to sell a plant that's labeled incorrectly. They have to sell you what they're selling it as. That's why a lot of times it would just be tropical or succulent, you know. But a lot of times, because then there is the Latin name, but that Latin name can cover a large variety of different types of the same plant. Yeah, it's tough, especially if they're importing the plant. They really have to have the right name when they're importing a plant. So that's why it's so broad. So it's just to be easier for them. But here's the thing about plants. You can basically divide plants up into 3 categories.
Okay.
And I'll get into what they are. These categories, when you divide them up into 3 categories, each category, all of the plants in that category require one of 3 different types of soil mix. And in each of those categories, all of those plants require the same care. There are a few exceptions, but not many. I divide all of my terrestrial plants into 3 groups. The first group is just all your different cacti. It's cactus. That's the first group. The second group will be most of your succulents and most of your orchids. And the third group would be all of your tropical varieties. Now, each of those 3 groups requires the same care. And let's say for your tropical varieties, all you really need is peat moss or cocoa coir. Both those products do the exact same thing. They absorb and hold on to water and nutrients. They also do not break down and decompose very fast. I mean, you can have the same potting mix your whole lifetime, and you still have it. So that's either peat moss or cocoa coir. They don't decompose, and they don't release, so they don't get broken down into nutrients, which is a good thing. It's nice, and they're neutral. They're not a low or high pH. So when you make up your potting mixes, let's start with the tropical varieties. You want to use peat moss or cocoa coir. Peat moss and cocoa coir will both hold on to and retain too much moisture by themselves. That's why the roots rot, and that's how you get your root rot into the roots. But if you add perlite, do like a 60%, actually it's a 70% peat moss or cocoa coir and 30% perlite. Perlite's that white powdery stuff. It's volcanic rock. It's actually glass. It's volcanic rock that got heated up and then it becomes glass. But that rock had water particles, water molecules, real small in it, And when they heat it up, it expands and cracks, it becomes porous, so water passes through it. But it's a rock or a glass. It does not absorb water, holds air pockets and allows water to go through it. So if you have 70% peat moss or coco coir, 30% perlite for your tropical varieties, it won't be able to hold too much water, and you can give it as much water as you want. All that excess water drains, and you can water your plants without having to worry about root rot. Most succulents and most orchids, some of those, you got to actually look up your individual plants, because some of those are more like a tropical variety. But most of your succulent and cacti, you just do an extra 10% of the perlite. You just add 10% more perlite. Well, not 10%. It's 60%. For them, it would be like 60% coco coir, peat moss, and 40% perlite. But then for your cactus, it's 50-50.
Okay.
You don't need any other products or materials in your pot at all. Just those two things, and they're cheap when you buy them in bulk. And they don't break down. If you have to up pot, you don't remove and throw that stuff out. You just take it out of one pot and put it in another pot and put some fresh material around it. And that's all you got to do. But you water these differently. Like the soil mixture, I told you, 50-50 for cacti, 60-40 for succulents and most of your orchids, and 50, and then 70% tropical, 70% and 30%. Now you just water these different. Each category of watering is different. Cacti, water them. That soil should become bone dry in a day or two because of the mixture. Wait several weeks before watering them again. That second group, most succulents and most orchids, same thing. You water them in a couple of days, the soil's bone dry. And then you let them go about a week. Now with those succulents or those cacti, as they get bigger, you might need to start watering them a day sooner. Now here's the interesting thing this is what my viewers love about this with the tropical varieties. Okay, so first the cacti and the succulents, because of where they grow, their root structures have evolved for the climate where they live. They have evolved for them to be in dry areas. They've evolved for those roots to become bone dry, and they will not become damaged. Those types of plants, you can damage them if they're in constant moist soil. Okay. I'm not even talking saturated, I mean moist. They need bone dry in between waterings. That's what they mean by letting your soil dry out.
Okay.
For cactus and succulents and things, you do not let your soil dry out for tropical plants. They're tropical. They come from a tropical rainforest where it rains every day, usually several times a day, but they're in very well draining soil. That's why you use a lot of perlite. Their root structures, if you allow the soil to become bone dry, their small little, plants have their primary roots and their secondary roots that you see real easy. What you don't see is these hair-like water roots. Those are the roots that absorb water real good out of soil. You do not want to allow your soil to become bone dry, because those roots will eventually dry out. And then when you rehydrate your plant, they have to concentrate on regrowing those roots, which takes moisture and nutrients. When watering tropical houseplants, think of a sponge. Put a sponge into the water, pull it out, wring it out the best you can until you can't get no more water out. Sponge is still moist. That is dry soil for tropical plants in between waterings.
Okay.
There's not enough moisture in that soil for the plant to absorb any water, but it's moist enough that those roots do not get damaged. And then when you re-water the plant, that water's sucking up the nutrients, the plant's getting nutrient-rich water. Yeah, you don't want your tropical plants to dry out, but I have never come across a potting mix with enough perlite. If you're not making your own, you're buying pre-made stuff, add more perlite. Definitely add more perlite.
Yeah, I know. The other thing that I was always curious about is, I know this is a common issue with plants that have soil. But you get the little what are they, gnats or something that come out of them? Is that something that you can prevent? With Okay, I need to know how to do that because
Did
that's
you
my
happen
wife
to
hates
see
that.
the video where it looked like I was sitting in front of a cloud? That
No,
was
I
where.
haven't.
So yeah, when I first started out, I was really trying to recreate the environment in which these plants came from, and I was experimenting with a lot of different organics, different types, and different amounts in the pots. Well, those organics get broken down by a lot of different organisms. We're all told, bacteria and fungus. Well, yeah, they do. And also other insects. Um, that's what fungus gnats are. They're like I don't know if it's a grub or a worm. I forget which they're classified as, but it's a fly. It lays eggs in your soil. They hatch, and those fungus gnats are eating that's why they're called fungus gnats. They're eating the fungus in the soil. Once they have enough, they come out, they turn into a fly, they mate, they lay more eggs in the soil. And that is by putting true organics into your soil. Peat moss and cocoa cord organic. It's true organic. That's a term I use. True organics to me is things like aged manure, commercial
Okay.
compost, things like that. That's the food source for all your pests. And you think that it's good for your plants because it's organic. Well, the problem with that is once you put like compost or manure into your pot, within 3 to 4 months, almost all of those nutrients are already gone. The little bit that's left, they take sometimes a year or more, and it's releasing such small amounts, it's not adequate to feed your plants. So you have to constantly, every 2-3 months, add more compost or manure to the top of your pot. And you can, because if you fill a pot up with good organic material, every couple months, the pot's shrinking because all that stuff's getting consumed. It's becoming the plant. But what you're doing is you're actually creating true topsoil in your pot, which will become too compacted. I was doing an experiment and realized you're much better off not putting those kind of organics into your pot because you're causing all kinds of future problems, including now you're going to have to remove that soil from the roots. It's not good for the plant. Just use peat moss or cocoa cord because it doesn't break down. It's always light, airy, fluffy. And then you just add a synthetic all-purpose liquid fertilizer. People say, no, don't use synthetics, use organics. Like we talked about earlier, they're not the plant itself isn't eating the organic material. It's the decomposers turning it into the nutrients.
Okay.
And the thing about that is not all organics break down to the same nutrient. Plus, it depends on what types of life forms are eating the nutrients because their waste, different things can eat the same organics and break it down, but their waste is going to become different types of nutrients. Adding a all-purpose liquid fertilizer, you're guaranteed to give the plant everything it needs immediately. So I am totally gone away from using true organics in most of my plants. I do still do it in my hanging baskets because most of my hanging baskets have vining plants, and I want that soil to lower in the pot because as the top of the pot gets thinner, because the leaves are aging out, you can just take cuttings, put some more fresh material at the top of the pot and stick all them cuttings in. You got a whole new flush of vines growing out with new foliage covering that bald spot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know I've seen people use mosquito nibs to try to put it on the soil to eliminate some of those gnats. The only problem I
Oh,
have is because I set up a terrarium, and I'm afraid to put that in there because I have isopods in there, and I'm thinking, well, that might kill the isopods. I don't know if it will or not, but
what's that? The fertilizer?
the mosquito nibs, the stuff they sell you to kind of eliminate.
Don't put that in your terrarium. That's just my own personal advice. You want a real robust life in there. If you have fungus nets in there, um, I mean, how bad's the problem?
Nah, not really. It's just once in a while they get out because it's not a totally sealed environment,
Are
but
the fungus
it's in the
nets
garage.
okay? Do you still have fish tanks in your garage, or are they all in the house now?
No, no, they're all in the garage. They never made it into the house. I was supposed to move into the house, but
Well, then
uh,
put some in your garage. Oh, you did a good job converting your garage.
yeah,
I thought
they're
you
all.
were in a bedroom now.
No, no, I was going to go in there, but my wife had second thoughts about getting rid of
Well,
that
then it's
bedroom.
not a problem, in my opinion, being in your garage and have it as close to the fish tanks as possible, because that's fungus gnats. Although they're eating in the soil while they're the worms or the grubs or whatever they are. When they come out, they want nectar. If there's no nectar, they go for water. They're feeding your
Oh,
fish. They're
okay.
feeding your fish. If you're not in your house and it's not bothering you, and there's not that many, but
Once
less
in a while,
water.
you'll see me kind of bat something at the air. It's because one of those will be around, but they're not. They're nowhere near as bad as when I first set up that terrarium. I've thought about getting like a little frog maybe to put in there, but it's only a 10 gallon and it doesn't have a top enclosure. I just put glass on top. But maybe, and that was my very first terrarium, so I was just kind of playing with it. Maybe in the
Watch,
future I'll set something up that's a little bit more appropriate.
watch some videos on jumping spiders,
Oh, okay.
the real tiny ones.
Uh-huh.
Real tiny, you can get them in beautiful colors and stuff. Oh, and they're really intelligent too. They'll this I'm being serious. So if you watch the videos, you'll see they'll figure out who you are as opposed to other people. It will come up to you. You can put your hand in there. Once it realizes it's you, it will come on your hand. You can look at it. You'll see people that have them as pets. It's just
Yeah.
it's crazy. But yeah, you can put one of them in there, and it won't even be able to. You might not even be able to get out. I have spiders in my tanks, my fish tanks. They don't seem to be able to crawl up the clean glass.
Oh,
You
okay.
put one of them in there, and you'd have a heyday. There's such a small one, you'd be gobbling them. Oh, but I don't know about your other life in your terrarium.
Yeah, the isopods may be in trouble with with.
Yeah,
I'd have to do some research. It's
yeah.
just a matter of doing research. That's all it is. But like I said, it's not that it's more of an annoyance when I'm sitting here in front of the computer. That's it. Other than that, it's not that big of a deal.
If you don't keep adding organics into the soil, eventually the organics will become depleted, and then there won't be the fungus they need, and then they'll be gone. If you have them ever in your house in house plants, even if it's a tropical plant, just let the soil go bone dry for a week and they're all gone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, my mistake was because the recipe that I saw for that terrarium, it was mostly it's cocoa fiber for I think like 80% of it, but they incorporated a little bit of potting soil in it, and I think that was a mistake that I put that potting soil, and it must have been in that potting, and it was from one of the plants that I broke down too, so it's coming from the store, so it probably had a bunch of those little gnats in there. Um, but it's whatever. It's just like I said, it's a bit of an annoyance sometimes when you're sitting here and it's trying to get into your. I don't know why they get attracted to the front of your face. It seems like they won't go away anywhere until you start batting them away.
Well, or we're just that's the ones that are in front of her face, so we see them. Look how tiny they are. You won't see them
Yeah.
on the other side of the room.
Nope. Nope. But yeah, I do have the aquariums and they're all open tops, so maybe that is controlling the amount that I have, and eventually, like you said,
Mhm.
it'll get to the point where they just don't continue to reproduce. But I'm always kind of curious with that because I know that's I've always been. I don't know what it is about plants, but I've always been attracted to high vegetation areas, and I've always wanted to have houseplants in the house, but that's always been the limiting factors because of all those little gnats that'll get released, and my wife gets tired of them, and she tells me, get them out of the house. But I guess now that I'm learning more, the more I've started researching, the more like I didn't know you had to change the soil. That's something we were talking about earlier. The soil that they originally come in, and switching it over to
Well, you don't change the soil. Eventually, you just up pot.
yeah.
Eventually, you'll need to up pot the plant. And when you up pot it, you just use the perlite and the peat moss or cocoa coal blend. You don't add real organics no more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all stuff that I've just recently, and it's been maybe about a year that I've kind of really started looking into it, because I always thought I didn't have a green thumb, that I was, it didn't matter which plant I got, I would kill. But now I'm having a little bit more success, and it's been more because, honestly, because I just knock the dirt off of them, put the roots in the water, and I never touch them, and they're doing well. The few that I have are actually doing pretty good. My biggest obstacle in here is not so much because our winters are pretty mild. Like, I'm sitting in the garage and it's like 75 degrees right now. So it doesn't get, the problem is my summers. My summers, it's not uncommon for it to be almost 100 degrees in here in the garage. And if I'm not careful, and I notice that some of the leaves will brown out. They don't necessarily die, but the air's too dry in the garage that they'll start crisping up at the edges, but they don't do very well. They struggle most of the summer, but then they'll bounce back once the weather changes a little bit. And the thing is, I don't let my humidity get too high either, because I don't want to have to be fighting mold in the garage either. So,
well, double check, but I mean, the funny thing about humidity is mold. I'm trying to think. You'd have to look it up, but mold doesn't grow. You have to have super high humidity.
Oh, okay.
90%.
See, that's always. Oh, okay.
I mean, well, and it depends on mold and stuff, but I mean, if you can keep your humidity at 70%, you're pretty much good with the mold. Okay. And
okay. See, I always freak out because it'll get up to 60 here sometimes in the middle of the summer, because I have all my aquariums are open tops, and that's what creates the humidity. And I see that because I have one of those digital thermometers that'll give me temperature and moisture in the area. And I'll come in here, and if it starts seeing get up about 50, I'm like freaking out. I'll open up the garage door and let all the humidity out.
Well, that's funny too, because actually, for your home,
yes,
you do not want your humidity, if you can help it. You don't want it below 40.
Oh,
because that's when wood surfaces start to actually dry out and shrink.
okay.
And you don't want it above, it's like 70 or 80. I don't remember, because that's when mold starts to grow. But also, it's bad for your lungs and it's bad for your skin if it's too low.
Yes.
Humans do want your humidity to be like between 50 and 60%. Perfect for our lungs and our skin. When humidity gets higher or lower than that, that's when we get respiratory infections and things like that. That's when we get sick at certain times of the year, because the humidity level is so low, and our lungs dry out and they don't have the mucus layer to protect yourself from viruses and stuff.
Yeah, so now that I know that, I guess I won't be burping the garage like I do in the summer when the moisture gets up. That was always my fear. Is I live in Arizona, so Arizona by nature is very dry. That's why it's a desert. We don't have a lot of moisture. But you see all these people talking about black mold and it's so bad for you and all that. But I don't know if we would ever get there, because unless I have standing water in the corner of the, I guess somewhere, that's the only way we could potentially get that kind of mold. Just
most mold that you see that is black, it's not black mold though. It's just black. It's just mold that's the color black. The harmful black mold is a lot rarer than you would think.
Okay.
And believe it or not, a lot of times if you have somebody come to look at your house, if you're not actually sending a sample yourself and getting the results yourself, a lot of times people that do mold removal, they see black mold, they'll tell you, oh, this is black mold, it's really bad. And you'll look up black mold, It is black, but it's not that black mold. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know we had some videos that were queued up that you wanted to you let me know when you want to go through those, or I'll leave that up to
okay.
you.
So I'll give some real basic, some plant care advice. And while I'm doing that, why don't you run that first clip there, the plant room tour one, so they can
Okay.
see. Because what you're going to be looking at is from last spring. Every fall, when I move my plants in, I have to cut everything back. So if we do end up walking around the house later, it's not quite as lush as what you're going to be looking at here. But this is pretty much how my house looks every spring. This was last spring. So just a little bit of plant care information. Um, Plants actually, houseplants actually enjoy living in the same conditions that we do. They grow the best in the same conditions we enjoy. Uh, Plants are going to be real happy between 70 and 80 degrees. They will grow slower under 70 degrees, and they'll grow slower at 85 or above. The picture seems to be jumping. Yeah, I should have been. Well, they still get to see the plant stuff. But yeah, anyway, the plants, they do just fine between like 70 and 80 degrees. And as far as humidity is concerned, yeah, 50 to 60% for plants is great. Um, yeah, I'm not even sure that's the right video. But yeah, you're seeing the plants though.
Now, in your house, how many aquariums do you actually have set up and running?
Oh, this is not the right video at all.
Okay.
Yeah, you can turn that right off. That is a real old video. My plant house looks so much better than that. I have plants. I have to have plants.
I know you did one that was like 11 days ago that you did a tour. Would that one be a better representation of what the fish
No,
would look like?
the one I wanted to show was called Plant Room Tour from 11 months ago. How old is this? This video?
This one, let me see. I think this one it's at 2 years.
Oh no, 11 months. What's the name of this video?
Um, okay, let me see. This is called Plant Room Tour.
Yeah, well, we want Plant Room Tour from 11 months ago.
All right, let me find it.
Yeah, so anyway, like I said, plants do just fine between like 70 degrees and 80 degrees. And also the humidity only really needs to be between 50 and 60%. But the funny thing about humidity is plants, even in this house right here, right now, my humidity is only 30%. What's more important about humidity is stable humidity. You don't want fluctuations. Stable humidity is so much more important than high humidity. And if you do have low humidity, the thicker a leaf is, the lower the humidity they can handle. That's why ferns really struggle in people's houses, because they're such a thin leaf. When you bring a plant home, what you really want to do is put it in the place you want it, find a place for it, you put it there, and then you don't do nothing with it. You don't do nothing with it for maybe 6 months, and you're going to see that plant struggle. Leaves are going to turn yellow and fall off or turn brown, but that's because that plant was probably grown in a greenhouse with a lot more light than what your house has, with extremely high humidity and a higher temperature. And that plant, all of its leaves and all of its tissue was grown to be in those conditions. When you bring it home, it takes quite a while for your plant to become accustomed to the conditions in your home. Do not change the conditions of your home or your plant room for your plants. Let them become adjusted to the new conditions they're going to be in your house. Usually when you bring plants home, they're going to lose some leaves. That's normal. And they're not going to really put out new growth. If they have leaves that are just starting to emerge, they might die back, but that's because they're not accustomed to the light or the humidity or the temperature of your house. Once you see that plant starting to put out new growth, you just let it continue to grow for a little while, and then you pull it out of the pot. and you look to see if the roots have filled in the pot. If the roots have started to fill in the pot, that's when you up pot. You bring your plant home, put it in its spot, you let it sit there, sometimes 6 months. A lot of my plants stay in the original pot. Yeah, that's the video. And then I up pot them, and then you'll see a lot of good growth. And when you up pot a plant, they tell you to only up pot one size, an inch wider, an inch deeper. That's because they don't want you to overwater the plant. They're afraid that you're going to put the plant in a pot with too much soil, and this soil's not going to drain. But if you use the right soil mix, you can put it in a very large pot if you want. And then you do not have to constantly up pot the plant, and the plant is going to be able to grow at its fastest speed that it can with the resources you're providing it with. Makes your maintenance easier.
Now, are any of these plants going to outgrow your indoor living area?
That's why I'm showing you this video. I just went through and cut everything back. I'm constantly cutting something. I get the 55-gallon trash bags, and I filled 3 of them. I filled 3 of them with cuttings off of my plants. I had to cut them back. And people think, oh, you're hurting the plant. You're hurting the plant. Actually, a lot of plants respond favorably to that because they're used to being eaten out in the wild. And it actually will stimulate new growth, and that new growth will grow and fill in quite nicely to catch the light, the angle of the light in that spot. But yeah, I cut my plants back a lot. And you can scale back the fertilizing to slow their growth. And how I said about putting them into large pots, if you're trying to really control the growth of your plant, then just go up 1 or 2 pot sizes. As far as the nutrients, use an all-purpose fertilizer, because an all-purpose fertilizer will have everything the plant needs. All plants use the exact same nutrients, believe it or not, and use them in the same way. And you do not have to give your plants the fertilizer that they need when they need it, because they store it and they hold on to it and use it when they need it. There's a lot of different functions to a plant. A lot of people know about the roots growing, the leaves growing. They know about photosynthesis, but what they might not be aware of, we got a commercial. Yeah, they might not be aware of is what about the regulation of hormones, the production of pheromones, their immune system, their vascular system, their circulatory system. All these different things take basically the same nutrients as every other function, just in different amounts. So you don't have to provide the plant with what it needs when it needs it.
Do these plants, like I know that's not the correct term, but these house plants, do they practice chemical warfare? Like, I see all these plants in your room. Do these plants, will outcompete each other even though they're not in the same pot?
No, they're not really competing. I don't allow my plants to compete for light. That's why they get trimmed so much. And I don't move my plants. I don't spin them or turn them or move them. So they grow very efficiently, and I will trim leaves off so they're not shading each other. They're not going to do chemical warfare because their roots aren't touching and stuff. What they will do is release pheromones to help each other. If they were growing outside, some plants will intentionally try to grow their leaves in front of other ones, because if they can kill the plant, maybe the root structures are also competing for the same real estate. But they actually help each other more than they harm each other. It's very interesting. If you have, are you familiar with the microbial network?
Yeah, I've heard about it. I'm not very vast in it, but I know it exists in forest, in outdoor environments where they'll communicate through the ground.
Yes, they do it through pheromones, but also through the ground, where they release pheromones and they can communicate with other plants, sometimes hundreds of miles away. But what they're doing is they're either releasing pheromones or electrical pulses or sound waves through their root structure that is communicating with different types of plants and microbes in real close vicinity to it. And they just pass the message along. That's why, like, if you're in an area that's experiencing a drought, the plants know better than the weathermen if there's rain coming. And they'll start getting prepared a day or two ahead for the rain. And they'll do what they can. But plants that are pretty far away, they also know the rain's coming because they're communicating and they're getting ready for the rain, growing out new water roots, repositioning their leaves to funnel water, things like that. The plants communicate very intensely with one another. Here's an interesting thing about trees. Trees should never be grown alone. That's not even different species of trees. Their root structures need to be in contact with each other. Even different species will grow their roots into each other, and they will share nutrients and they will share water with each other. And here's what's interesting. Let's say a drought starts. The first thing that trees will do is they will shut off their root structures. They're still connected, but they just stop letting the exchange happen with other species first. The drought gets worse. They now shut off their root structure with all plants other than their own saplings. Their own saplings, not even the same species sapling over there. It keeps its own saplings. And then if the drought gets even worse, the tree will do one of two things. It most likely is not going to shut off those saplings. It may even sacrifice itself to keep those saplings alive. Really interesting how trees do that.
So trees do practice parenting.
Yes, they do. They really do. And you may also be surprised that, a lot of places, there's one place in the United States where there's a whole forest that is one tree, got one root structure.
Oh.
And there's thousands of
trees or aspens.
Maybe, I don't remember the name, but it's the only tree growing in that forest. And when you go through the entire forest, it's all clones. It's just the roots keep growing, and then it will, kind of like when something sends a runner out, but it's a tree. And the funny thing is they do that there, but that same species ain't doing it nowhere else. It's pretty unique.
Now, something that I've always been curious, and I don't know if you might know the answer to this or not, but as somebody that is just coming in to the idea of being able to take these type of plants and putting them in an aquarium, is there a guide that we can go to say these type of plants will do well versus these plants are not meant to be waters in, what they call it, wet foot, or I think that's a term that I've heard, or where they're growing in water?
Most plants can grow in water.
Okay.
Most plants, it's just a matter of how you prepare the roots. Plants that grow on a vine and where the leaf comes out, that's a node, and they'll get an aerial root. Those plants are really good. Those are like all kinds of pothos, monsteras, philodendrons, all kinds of stuff, vining plants. But also, you can grow peace lilies. Right now, I have a snake plant growing straight out of water. If you get a plant with roots, get all the soil off of the roots, trim the roots, let it sit out a little bit to let it dry, and then just put them in water. Those roots that grew in soil are going to rot. That's why you trim them. You don't want all that decomposing into your tank. Because those roots, the outside of the roots, the cell structure is for being in soil with actual oxygen. They need to regrow roots that's just water roots. It's a different type of cell tissue. There are some plants you just cannot do that with, but like there are so many plants that work just fine. Peace lily, monstera, arrowhead, spider plants. I don't know, just the list goes on and on. But just because you do it with one plant and it fails, it doesn't mean that if you had 3 of the same plant, 1 or 2 of them would have made it. You know what I mean? And another thing too about putting plants in the water, it's gonna take a long time for them to transition. First, they got to shut off that existing root structure, and at the same time grow a new root structure, which means there's almost no root structure to support the foliage. So you're probably going to lose some of that foliage while it's trying to grow. It's like a balancing act the plant's doing, just trying to survive until it has the right root structure for the amount of foliage. And then it's all determined on how much light you give it and how much nutrients it can absorb out of the tank. And that will, you know, I've grown so many plants that failed, but I've also grown so many of the exact same cutting that made it. Always try it with cuttings off of existing plants. Get cuttings from friends. Buy a terrestrial plant that you're going to put in your tank. You're better off taking cuttings off of it where there's a node or where it's branching out. Go right below the branch. Use the cuttings so that mother plant's still alive, so you can keep trying. And it's cheaper that way instead of just buying a plant and plopping it in your tank and hope it lives. Take cuttings, get cuttings from friends, buy small plants, let them grow, get them cheaper.
Yeah, I've been most of the plants that I've been getting, I'm getting them when the season's going out. It's funny because in Arizona, I guess technically we don't have a growing season and then a winter season year round because our temperatures are pretty high. We don't freeze out. But because the stores are nationwide, whenever the rest of the other stores start putting all their plants on sale, that's usually when I go buy plants.
Plants know what season it is by their hormones.
Okay.
And the main way they know what the season is by how many hours of natural light there are. They can sense that.
Okay.
There is, regardless where you live, even in a tropical rainforest, there is a growing season. All plants are going to grow better in spring and summer because the light spectrum from the sun, because of how it's positioned with us, it's how close or whatever. There are different seasons, and no matter where you are in winter, the light intensity, the spectrum's a little bit different. And the big thing is the overall amount of hours. A plant only engages in photosynthesis when it's in light. But another thing is a plant does not always engage in photosynthesis when it's in light. If you have a plant, especially a tropical plant that needs to be in moisture all the time, if a plant does not have enough water and it does not have the nutrients that it needs to engage in photosynthesis, it's not necessarily engaging in photosynthesis when it's in light. That's why in the winter, it's very important. Here's something I do that's different. This is through experimentation. And a lot of my viewers tried this, especially those of us that live in northern climates, northern United States, Canada, Europe. In the winter, we're taught to reduce the amount of water you give your plants because they're growing slower, and they really do grow slower. We're also taught to reduce, or even better, stop fertilizing because they grow slower. And we're taught never up pot your plant because they grow slower. They're probably even dormant. Tropical houseplants don't go dormant. If you're already underwatering your plant in the summer and then winter comes, and you think just because it's winter, you need to reduce the water even further and stop fertilizing, what you're actually doing is creating drought-like conditions in your pot. And that's why it's growing slower. That's why it don't need as much fertilizer. So now it's not got the water to grow and it's starving. So even though they don't go dormant, they go semi-dormant in drought-like conditions. And that's what we're doing. We're creating drought-like conditions in the winter for our plants. And that's why you can't up pot in the winter, because they're already going semi-dormant because we got them in a drought-like condition. But understand, everybody's condition's different. If you're using grow lights in the winter, then definitely you're probably going to be continuing to water and fertilize. If you live in a climate where you have to run indoor heating, that's going to dry your house out even more. Yeah. And what happens is the air actually sucks the moisture out of your pots, drying them out faster. If your house is cold, like in the 60s or lower, your plants are going to grow slower because of the temperature. But if you're keeping your house at 70 degrees, 69, 70, 72, 73, temperature is not an issue slowing your plants down. If you got them in front of a good window, that you wash the inside, outside of your window in the fall, remove your screens in the fall, and wipe your leaves off, and you're giving them water and nutrients, they're still going to grow. They might grow slower, but what you're doing is you're giving them what they need to hold on to and maintain the existing foliage. That's why we lose so many leaves in the winter. We're not watering and fertilizing as much, but the temperature and the lighting does really, it's important. But by not giving them the water and the nutrients, the plant's shutting itself down and dropping its foliage. And you want to give the plant the best chance it can to maintain all the foliage it can. So everybody knows in spring, the plant starts growing good. Well, when those days get longer, wouldn't you rather already have foliage to convert the light into energy for photosynthesis, as opposed to taking a smaller amount of foliage and using that to just grow foliage it already lost? My plants get larger every season, including winter. Winter is a growing season in our house. As long as you keep it warm, grow lights are great in the winter. Move your plants closer to the window if you can, if they're not drafty. You might need to water a little bit more, especially if you're burning wood in your house or your furnace is actually in your house, because they actually act as a dehumidifier.
Winter, the other thing, what I'm curious is, because I know temperature in the aquariums really plays a part in the lifespan of the stocking in there. You know, if it gets cold, it slows down the life. You know, how fast it's metabolic rate, and if you increase the heat, you could potentially shorten the lifespan of a fish. Mm-hmm. Do plants have a life? Because these are in a pot. Is there a point where it expires, or a plant will grow forever?
Not all plants will grow forever. Some plants will grow seasonally, annuals. There's annuals in the environment. Plants will eventually die. Okay. Some plants can live hundreds, even thousands of years.
More than likely, they'll outlive us.
But I mean, plants really do live long, because even if their branch falls over or the vine touches soil, it starts a new root structure, and it's actually a clone of itself, but it is still alive. I have a lot, like eventually this plant right here, I'll be cutting that vine off, and where it's touching the ground, this will become the plant. A lot of my plants, I'll just take the nice, healthy growing tips, cut it, I throw the rest of the plant out. I save the soil in the pot. Plants get so big, I have to seal them. So I gotta cut them back, but I'll keep the growing tips and replant them. Or if I have a pole, like a moss pole where they're growing up the pole, I'll have my poles will have two different pieces, and when it grows all the way to the top, I take that top piece off. I just cut the vine at the moss pole, and I pat at the bottom, and I rip all the vine out of the bottom piece, and I put the bottom at the top, because as the plant is growing and getting older, the newer leaves that come, they eventually get bigger. Do you know the golden pothos leaves actually get like this long and like this wide? Like they get
No.
like 2.5 feet long, 1.5 feet wide on average. If you let them grow up upwards, that's most of our plants we don't grow the way they're intended out in the wild. But if you let them grow up, the new leaves, can keep getting larger and larger. And as that vine grows up and you can't let it grow no more, you just take the top part of that pole or that vine and you just replant that down by the ground and let it keep growing. These are fenestrations. And golden pothos gets fenestrations if you let the leaf get mature enough. Not the leaf, the vine get mature enough. The vine has to get old. You always keep the growing tip of your vine.
See, I have, and I think it is a golden pothos, the one that sits right behind me. I I tried putting it up on the vine to go vertical, and for some reason it dropped all the leaves. But now it's starting to grow new leaves, and I thought maybe I made a mistake because I forced it to grow up.
That's how
Um,
it needs to grow.
oh, okay,
If it dropped its leaves, was it a cutting?
yeah, it was a cutting.
Okay, how many leaves did it have?
I can see where it dropped
More
them.
than
One,
one
two,
or
three,
two?
four, five, six, about 7 leaves. But it's
Okay.
it's growing new stuff.
Let me see here. I want to flip my screen.
Yeah, it's if you go to the gear wheel, you click on that, and then it'll give you the camera option, and it'll allow you to go front facing or back facing. I think it says on there. It gives you the
I'm
option on
what
it.
you're talking about. I'm just not seeing it. Hold on.
You're on your phone, right?
Oh, I see. I got it.
Okay.
So, no. Why didn't it do it?
Yeah.
What are you guys seeing? You seeing my face?
Yeah, we're seeing you. Oh
I'm
no,
not
it just
seeing
switched orientation. That's all I did.
crap.
Nope. He'll jump back on. How's everybody doing? Hopefully, hopefully I'm not boring you guys with this. I'm just getting all my answers question. I have so many questions about plants because they're relatively, I do keep some aquatic plants, and I've been pretty successful with the ones that thrive in my situation. But I've always been curious about like the stuff that is what's new to me. It's all those immersed growths and stuff like that. Let me see. I thought I saw him. There he is. Let me get us. We're both on screen. There you are.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it for some reason. This thing
It's
is
usually at the
spinning.
bottom of the screen. You see the
Yeah, I
little
know.
gear wheel. Do you see a camera icon?
Did I lose you? Oh, there you are.
No, no, you're here. You're still with us. Well, thank you.
Sorry, everybody.
Scott.
Let me try to see I know what the icon is. I'm just not seeing it on my phone.
I'm trying to remember what it looks like on the phone. Let me see. Because that's the problem that the displays are very different on the phone versus the computer. Let me get in here real quick. I'm gonna go on a different. Nope. Come on. Taking you forever to load. Okay, this is the one that I was just recently on. And hopefully, I don't know if it'll change on the platform either. I have an Android, so I don't know if it's different from. Okay, I'm looking at this for the cameras. Okay, you're not going to see the pinwheel. What you're going to have is is it
A
the three?
person? Let me try
It's not.
this. Nope, that didn't do it.
You should see a microphone and a camera icon with the little arrow on it.
I press the camera. Oh, I just turned the camera off. Oh, let me see what this
Yeah.
does. This options.
It should give you the front facing, 1 front facing, 3 front facing, 2 and 0, I guess, for the back. But it should be on the icon that shows. There you go. All right. So now let me get you there. Let me change things up so that you and I are different. There we go. All right. Perfect.
So these are about 3 months old. It was actually just two leaves. You don't want a lot of leaves. It's just some sticks that and you see the roots growing out of them now. 3 or 4 months growth. It's not growth, and I just set them in here so as I need them, I can pull them off. These plants up here, are you seeing everything?
Yes, I'm seeing everything.
All of these plants up here are it's a little weird because everything's backwards when I'm looking through it. But all of these plants are several years old. It's weird. Are several years old, but I'm using real crappy shop lights up here. So it's not the right light. So they're really not growing at all for me. Now in this room, I actually have a grow light. In this room over here. Oh, I got to turn the light on. Hold on. Sorry. Yeah, guys, this is my first time ever doing anything live, so I'm not real good at it yet. But if you look at these plants up here, that's an actual grow light. And these plants I'm constantly trimming back up here. But that's because it's a real grow light. And you'll see in a minute, there are a lot of roots in these tanks. A lot of roots in these tanks.
Yeah, I've gotten where the pothos that I have, the roots have reached the substrate and they're growing into the substrate now.
Yeah. Let's let them get a quick look at some stuff. Yeah, I like my houseplants.
Now is it plastic? The black stuff in the back, is that for humidity control or just for aesthetic?
For appearances? This is the what's on my walls is just landscaping fabric that you use to control weeds. But it's good because it breathes and you don't got to worry about mold or mildew or anything like that. And it just looks nice. I think it looks nice instead of white walls. I think it makes my tanks and makes the tanks and the plants pop. Yeah, I have to figure out better how to use everything's backwards, so I'm having a hard time even showing you stuff. But,
somebody's saying that they got to hurry up and kick the kids out of the house so they can have a jungle house like yours.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did. But we moved too. This is how it looks in here now.
Wow. I don't know. There's just something about seeing all that greenery that just kind of puts you in a different state of mind. I don't know what it is. It just seems more lively.
Yeah. And I really, if you watch my videos, I pretty much film almost everything I do. I don't do much for the plants. I really don't. You'd have to really watch some of the videos. Like I have one video that would be really good. It's a beginner's guide for new plant parents.
Is that the 300-gallon stocking tank that you set up? The one that we're looking at right now?
Yeah, this is actually an indoor pool liner, 370-gallon outdoor pool liner that I filled with a multi-layer substrate to plant my plants in. It's actually an indoor raised bed in this room. I have a raised bed in my house.
Now, are you using it for propagation or just as a decorative piece, kind of like a statement piece?
It's decorative, but it was part of an experiment that I am no longer doing. I got there. I learned what I needed to learn, and I
Okay.
wanted to have my plants to be able to have their roots grow and touch each other to see the
Oh,
difference. But that experiment's done. I have no control groups no more. Now I just planted it up. These plants will all grow nice and large over time. I learned I
Di-
don't want organics, true
okay.
organic plants.
Did you did you do a video on the results?
Not this wasn't something that I technically documented real good.
Okay.
For
Okay.
one thing, I started the experiments before the channel, but no, I have videos explaining the
Okay.
results and why everything works the way it does and what I learned and now I that's how I care. Now I know how to care for my plants, and I explain how I care for my plants and why I do what I do. So all that, there's videos for all of that kind of stuff.
Let me ask you something because there's certain plants like the one I was looking with the white variegation that you had earlier. Now, those are what they're called what cultivars? Is that the correct terminology? Yeah, like that one there. You don't see that in nature, right?
This is
Okay.
a mutation. This is a elbow monstera. This is actually here.
Yeah. Now those plants, because of the mutations, would they still be able to be put like in the water and be able to grow, or are they more susceptible because they're a hybrid plant?
That's a very good question.
Because
I'm
I know
just
they're
looking
very
at it.
expensive, and I wouldn't go buy one,
Well,
stick it in the aquarium, and have it die on me. But I love the way they look.
no, George, you would not put this into an aquarium because you would propagate this and sell it and have it pay for aquariums.
That would
It,
be the smarter move.
yeah, it is actually a rare plant. Um, Now, here's the thing. I did a lot of research with this plant. Just give me a minute to get organized here. I did
Yeah.
a lot of
Oh,
research with this plant. And this is what I mean about people making YouTube videos, watching somebody else's video and using that information to make theirs. Oops. What am I doing? I am so sorry, guys. Trying to get it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a rookie with this stuff, everybody. I
that's
don't
fine.
I don't know. I There's a lot of crazy activities that people do to propagate that plant because it's so rare. And I am now believing, oh, there we go. I am
Yeah.
now believing that the reason that they are so hard to, no, it's still ain't right. The reason they're so hard to propagate is because we're trying to do fancy stuff to propagate them.
Oh,
Because I'm finding that it's actually really easy. Jeez, I am so sorry. I apologize. Let me get this. I told you I'm not a tech person. I'm real old school.
yeah. No, no worries.
There we go.
I'm just happy we get to see your 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 plants. I mean, it's like I said, I've always been very impressed with the different types of plants and I was telling you it's the two channels that I've kind of used as my resources when trying to figure out which plants I can grow uh immersed out of the aquariums has been your channel and plant life tanks. And and they're the ones that I'll go and see, oh, that plant looks like the one at the store. Yeah, I'm gonna be able to take it and try it.
Really, if whatever you're doing, if it works for you and you're happy with the results, just keep doing that. The one thing that I do say though, if you're growing tropical plants, keep watering them the way you do on the frequency you do it with the amount. But in between your normal watering days, just give them like maybe 20% extra in between and see what kind of results you get with those plants, tropical plants.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's so worried about overwatering or underwatering. A lot of people, not
Yeah.
everybody, but a lot. I did for years.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest problem is not having enough drainage then on your plants. That's where you really start running into issues.
It really is. That's the big thing, improper drainage. Potting soils used to be really good. I remember them being better, and I have people that are telling me that, 30, 40 years ago, they were cheaper. Most of the organics in potting mixes is now just called forest byproduct. I mean, technically, it's true. What it is, it's just hog from sawmills. It's not the same as it used to be. The amount of perlite that they used to put in, it's not in there. They hardly put any. It's almost as if they put just enough in so they can put that on the label that it has perlite.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Now that you mentioned that, that is true. I do notice that it doesn't have the little white rocks in it as much as it. I remember when growing up as a kid,
Mm.
you know, that my mom would throw a plant away or something, and you'd see it had a lot of them,
Yeah.
of those little. Um, I used to think it was shock, but you said it's more like glass. But yeah, no,
Mhm.
I do notice that they do have a lot less, and it seems like it's less and less. I
Yeah.
think, like you said, I think now they're just putting the bare minimum to be able to say that they're using that material.
Yeah, like I said, tropical plants, at least 30% of the pot should be perlite, and cacti all the way up to 50%. You can even use sand. And for cactus, you don't even have to use perlite. You can use sand. Some water
Yeah,
goes through
the
real easy.
the few cacti that we have around the house, that's all I use. It's just regular sand. And because that's what they grow out here, and
Mhm.
so I just do that. Now, I know you answered that earlier, but I always was wondering succulents, if that was something that you could incorporate in your aquariums. The only place I've ever seen them sort of successfully done is like in a terrarium, and the only water source in there is maybe like a water feature, but they're not necessarily in the water. So I guess that's why they're able to pull it off where they can keep those succulents.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on the type of succulent because there are some succulents that are closer to tropical plants than they are cacti.
Now, in your aquariums,
It
I know I
depends
asked you at the
how
beginning, but you said we would get to it later on. How many aquariums do you actually have set up? Because most people that would see this would probably think, oh, it's just a plant channel, but I know you do have aquariums.
Oh, I think I got 24 right now set up. Well, one's a
Okay.
terrarium, so 23. I got 23. 23 of them. Yeah.
Now, are the aquariums you're keeping, are they mostly displays, or are you doing some breeding, or they're just kind of experimental projects?
Well, I do try to do somewhat of a little bit of an aquascape in my tank so they look nice because I enjoy doing it. It's ridiculous how expensive it is to aquascape.
Yeah.
Especially a big. I got a 75 there, a 55 there. The aquascaping and it's pretty minimal. I don't even know how to answer that. All of my tanks do have something pleasing in them,
Okay.
and I don't breed fish for profit. I do breed some fish so that those fish can be food sources.
Okay.
I also breed fish because I don't want to not have fish. I have so many aquariums, and it is kind of cool to see a fish swimming around. In some of my tanks, I don't mind having fish, but I don't want to buy expensive fish. I have an African leaf fish. That's my most expensive fish. I mean, I got the fish in the videos, but to show people, why don't you go to the to Tank Mates? Oh, I'm sorry. Go to Working in the Fish Room and show them that video. This is the kind of life that I prefer in my tanks, guys. So I'm not really a fish keeper. I have different types of tank mates.
Okay.
Working in the Fish Room.
You want me to start from the beginning or at the starting point you had?
3 minutes, 10 seconds.
All right.
Yeah. That's the
go
one.
from here. So you have an axolotl.
Nope, that is a native salamander. Once his gills disappeared, I let him go outside.
Oh, okay.
But that's what he looks like, isn't it? No, I don't have.
Yeah.
And in a second, you'll start to see some cool stuff.
Now, did you collect this from the wild, or did it come in as a hitchhiker? Oh, okay. And you got some scuds.
Yeah. Hey, if you could identify all this stuff, I would love it because I don't know what some of the stuff is.
That's a dragonfly nymph.
No, that's a lacewing. You'll see the dragonfly later. That's a lacewing. This one's getting ready to molt.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go.
You know what that
That's
is?
a worm.
Yeah, that's what I call it too. It's not a.
Yeah, no, I don't know what it is.
It's not a.
I see them in. Oh, you have aquatic isopods.
Yeah.
Nick, is Nick still here? He's gonna get all excited. Yeah, mine are terrestrial. I don't have any aquatic ones yet. Oh, tadpole.
Yeah, I let the frogs go after they hatch, or I mean after they turn into the tadpoles. They turn into a frog. I let them go. Interesting thing about leeches and most of the parasites, even the planaria and my hydra, they I don't see the numbers of anything dropping in the tanks. I actually see the numbers of like my fish and shrimp going up, even with hydra, planaria, dragonfly nymphs, all kinds of stuff.
So that's what you were talking about, trying to create an so you're not necessarily keeping a fish tank. You're keeping a little system in a water box.
Yeah, let that keep playing for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually create an ecosystem that's as diverse as possible and as self-sustaining as possible. But I am learning it takes a hell of a lot to keep these tanks at these levels of life. You have to supplement green water almost daily. You got to add all kinds of food. You got to collect you have to actually collect the native aquatic plants that grow with these and grow them in other tanks, because the insects, you're only seeing a fraction of the type of life forms I have. They eat the native plants so fast, and surprisingly, like a lot of the stuff you buy at the fish store, they don't eat, but they're eating their native stuff fast. So you got to constantly be adding that to it, adding leaf litter. You see all the detritus in this tank floating around? I had to add that to it. And every 3 days, the tank's crystal clear, including all the detritus on the top, because it gets consumed that fast. If I have a dead fish, it gets consumed in like 6 to 12 hours. It's gone. If I have fish that die, I mean, a fish jumps out of the tank, or I just have a few individual fish die. Are we still together?
You're still here.
So if a fish dies, I don't remove it from the tank. I either let it get consumed or I stick it in the soil as a root tab. Okay. Now, I'm doing an interesting experiment right now. Yeah, this clip, where are we at? It's almost done. Oh. So ecosystems. I'll show you. There'll be one little last clip after this. I have snail that is an ecosystem itself. You can get off of this. This one's done. And if you want, go to that last that we set aside, the working in the fish room.
Okay, let me go
back.
I'm
sorry. It's no, I'm talking the natural ecosystem super predators.
Okay, let me go find it. I know I have it here, but I don't like having people
so this is
watch me fumble with this.
a snail that is
Okay.
habitat itself. The snail is a habitat. It's really interesting.
Oh, the snail.
The snail itself is a habitat. It's got multiple types of
Okay. Let me.
it has worms that live on its face. And if the snail needs to go and protect itself, and you know how they go in and they put that cover over their head, all the other
Yeah.
worms go inside with it. Okay, now go to 3 minutes, 55 seconds.
Wow. It looks like he.
But those are growing off of,
So those are all worms.
yeah, worms growing off of its head. It didn't seem to hurt it. That snail lived for like a year and a half for me. Several types of algae, seed shrimp live on it. Okay, that clip's done because we're done with the clips. But yeah. So here's the thing about aquariums. And now, guys, I could be totally wrong. This is new for me, experimenting. I mean, I've been doing it for 4 years. We're all taught about the what is it? The nitrogen cycle. Very important. The nitrogen cycle is one cycle. The actual cycle of the aquarium is it's called a couple different things. The common name is the nutrient cycle. The nitrogen cycle is a part of the nutrient cycle. It's also called, I think the technical term is ecological recycling. An ecosystem has many different habitats. And I'm trying to have tanks with multiple habitats because you need these multiple habitats to work together to form a food chain. Which is why if you guys are breeding fish, you have expensive fish. You know, most people, and it's fine, different people have tanks for different reasons, but they have an aquarium to have a fish tank, to have fish and plants. And that's fine. I have tanks like that. But then my ecosystems, where I'm trying to establish a food chain, which is a little more complicated than a food web. Food web, you're just trying to have a few organisms that can reproduce so your fish can chase them around and have a nice tasty meal. I can't use any kind of real chemicals in my tanks. Because if I knock out any link, or even just reduce the amount of life in any link to that chain, every link to that chain above it diminishes. And so, like if you think about the sand at the bottom of the tank, your substrate, you need it to be a certain depth. I think that depth is between 3 and 4 inches. And that's because, you know, you're told that it will go into layers. Well, you can see those layers, but there's another set of layers that you don't see. Certain life forms are going to live like within the top 1/8 of an inch because that's how far a certain amount of light is penetrating, and they live in that. Got other ones that actually live on the detritus on top of the sand. You got other ones that will live down to where there's oxygen in the sand, but a whole different type of life that lives where there's not oxygen. It's different types of bacterias and stuff. So there's the sand is a great texture where you want to add organics, maybe a thin layer of topsoil. I mean, you can add aquarium soil. I don't see the point. It's super expensive. People just freak out about putting soil in their tank, topsoil. But you see the life I got in my tank. Topsoil don't bother me. I mean, you can put aquarium soil. The nice thing about aquarium soil is you can even just mix it into the sand, I guess. But topsoil helps to jumpstart the ecosystem or the habitat. It's the habitat in the sand. The water floating on your tank is a habitat. That film you're looking in at, you know, it looks kind of like an oil slick or whatever. That's a biofilm that's made up of proteins and fats, amino acids, and fungi and organic material. Well, there's stuff that will, if you leave that there, there's stuff that will feed on that. I have water spiders that hop around on top of my tanks. I got all kinds of insect life. hopping around and swimming around that live and walk on top of that, and they all eat each other. All the surfaces of your tank are other environments. The wood itself, your driftwood itself, different types of driftwood actually become different types of environments because like spiderwood, sunlight can't get in too far. You can have softer driftwoods, I forget the names, but different life can live deeper inside of them. And they're all working together because we're taught that the nitrogen cycle is like a loop, like a circle. Well, that's great on a flat piece of paper, but the nutrient cycle is not a circle. It's going in all these different directions. It's not just the nitrogen cycle, and I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. Because when a tank cycles, a tank can become out of. I mean, how many of us had fish tanks that it cycled and all of a sudden got an ammonia spike? Something died, you added something, you took something out. The cycles aren't continuous. There's always fluctuations, but there's a balance. There's a balance. But there's stages your tank goes through. Like what I'm seeing in my tanks is the 3 algae blooms that occur within the first 9 to 12 months. Expect them. Enjoy them. Welcome them. They are supposed to happen, and if you don't mess with them, they disappear. And while they're there, they stabilize the water. They stabilize the whole tank so that it's healthy. Just remove it manually. The algae you don't like, if you have a pretty algae, don't remove that. Don't ever remove all of it. Remove some of it, and you can do your water changes. The problem with doing water changes for me, well, I don't like doing them. Water changes are good. I just don't like doing them. But if you're doing them unnecessarily, then you have to continue to do it. Or if you stop, wait for your tank to recycle and then rebalance. But every time you're removing water when you don't need to, you're removing nutrients. And I'm not talking excess nutrients. If your tank is balanced and cycled, you're removing nitrogen that has to, you're removing nutrients and carbon and stuff out of your tank that you want to stay in there to continuously be recharging the tank, and it's like consuming itself. I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't do water changes. I have to do water changes because I have hard water in the well. And my water keeps getting harder and harder, my pH goes up, and sometimes that can be a little bit of an issue for plants and fish and everything. So I do water changes. Plus, no matter what, even if I didn't have hard water, I'd probably do 2 or 3 a year anyway. But make your tank healthy. I have a tank with 30-some fish. It is definitely my most expensively stocked tank. I went and bought 5 more fish to replace some of the fish that died, same type. I didn't add the water to my tank, but I did not isolate the fish. This was an extremely healthy tank. I threw them in there. 2 days later, I got my magnifying glasses on, looking in the tank. The eyes are bulging on most of the fish I put in there. Maybe not both, but really bulging. One was almost hanging out of its head. Like, shit. I start looking stuff up. It could be parasites in the liver or something causing liver failure. It could be a virus in the eyes. It could be other types of parasites or viruses. I'm not going to dump a chemical in the tank. I don't even know what it is, what the real problem is.
Yeah.
So all I did, because I know that where I got these fish from, I know the fish store. It's a great fish store. I don't know if the guy realized. He probably did. I don't know if he realized it. I wish he would have. Well, I wouldn't have bought it, told him. But I don't know if they've already been medicated. So I'm not going to medicate. I don't put medicines in my tanks. I don't have expensive fish. So I did do a water change to bring my water to the water parameters that those fish came from. And that's all I did. And so now I'm watching the tank. I have one of my fish die. The fins on the fish are rotting. They're no longer colorful. So what did I do? The next month, nothing. The next month, nothing. The fish got worse. I lost 2 more fish. The next month, the fins are growing back. This month, Their colors return. Most of the fins have grown back. None of the old fish that are the same species got that problem in the eye. And I'm not sure, but I do think the other one's eyes are getting smaller. And I did nothing. I did not add chemicals to wipe out all that weird life I had in the tank. It's an experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with you, it gets a little bit more difficult to do the water changes because you've been able to create these layer upon layer upon layer of the different life forms within the aquarium that doing a water change would eliminate a lot of those microorganisms that are in
Not
there.
if I just put a siphon in and I'm just siphoning out the water column. Most of the life, a lot of my life that you've seen in the video is not just microscopic. And that was not all
Yeah.
the species I have. Most of the bacteria and fungus and all that kind of stuff, aquatic molds, there's all kinds of stuff. It's on surfaces. There's a little bit in the water, but they're on the surfaces. Like I have pumps and stuff to circulate water. Like I can take a pump, put it in a tank that has a lot of nutrients and not a lot of plants, and have that pump blowing against the surface of the glass or blowing against some driftwood. And then my population, I'll get a real beautiful colony of hydras, real pretty, like the white, they get the little, they're beautiful. But that's because I'm pushing the nutrients towards the surface that they're attached to. Or I get really beautiful algae growing off of surfaces. A lot of the bacteria is going to, if you use, I don't use filters, but if you have filters, it's in there. It's in the medium. It's on the surfaces. It's in the soil. It's actually a lot of your life is going to be attached to the detritus at the bottom of the tank. I almost never remove detritus unless I got something crazy happening or it's a brand new tank. I want that detritus to stay there because I need it to keep breaking down. So I need that detritus and the life that's on the detritus that you don't really see too much. Yeah, you see the copiopods and the detritus worms, but you don't see the microscopic stuff breaking it down smaller. The organic pieces are not nutrients yet, but they're in the tank smaller, and they start filtering through the sand, turning your sand into soil. And then that soil gets consumed and turned into nutrients for the plants. Here's something interesting about plants. Plants actually release things into the water. Like they will release pheromones into the water column or into the soil, telling a very particular type of bacteria or fungus, tricking it, releasing pheromones that are similar to the same pheromones they use or the same chemicals that they use to get all the rest of that same species of bacteria to start reproducing faster, to increase the number.
Oh,
and the plant is causing that because the plant senses it has a nutrient deficiency. So it will release that particular pheromone for that particular type of bacteria or mold or fungus or whatever, because different life forms, even though they're eating the same stuff, their waste is a different nutrient because their bodies are different and they have their own functions to support. So even though the same food being eaten, different life forms create different nutrients trying to manage and maintain the environment. Plants don't move. They need to find ways to maintain the environment around it. So they're actually raising the nutritional content of a certain nutrient by its pheromones, or it can even release things that your tank is lacking, like fats and amino acids. It produces it and releases that through its roots to bring certain life that requires fats and amino acids closer to its roots to get that, but they're also eating other stuff and they're fertilizing the roots with particular nutrients or bringing them in because those things are also going to eat things that are pests to the plant. It's really intricate. It's going to be a long time before I'm able to really put really good. I mean, I've already started making the videos. I got to keep making the videos over and over as I learn to figure out how to explain stuff. And so people can comment back to me to teach me stuff and figure out what I need to look up and double check. But it's fun. The YouTube's part of the hobby. I have plants and fish tanks, but YouTube is a hobby too. That is very expensive, I'll let you know. people think I make money off of YouTube. Like they think YouTube pays for everything. Like YouTube, been on YouTube for 4 years, or 3 years. I've been monetized for 2, and YouTube hasn't even paid for one of my cameras. So it's like,
Yeah, that's a misconception that once you get monetized, it'll help you pay for things around the fish. I tell people I average about $100 every month and a half, every 2 months. But that's just because I'm not pumping out content. Sorry, I think
crazy. YouTube's expensive for me.
yeah, it can
I
be.
don't sell nothing. I don't produce nothing. I mean, yeah, I do sell an occasional plant, and I will trade my shrimp. An interesting thing about my shrimp, I had thousands of shrimps. Now, this is documented real good. I had thousands of shrimp in this house, well over 1,000 mystery snails. My mysteries, I bought 3 mystery snails, and I just started, I poured water, so it was easy. But I bought two shrimp. One was red, one was orange. The last 2 I bought them at Petco when they lived. Bought 2 of them, put them in a tank. They both had eggs, and I did contaminate my tanks after cocktail hour. I was cleaning up some tanks, and I grabbed a brand new razor blade and cleaned it good enough. But I had tanks with real good green lines, blue, almost. I had real deep purple, orange, 3 different reds. I had red with a white dot. Red. I had so many shrimp, so many different colors, and they all just came from two shrimp. And I did trade them quite a few times, and I did trade snails quite a few times, and Java moss, because my Java moss was growing so fast at one point I had to start throwing it out. But yeah, now I'm going to start selling cuttings. I don't know if you've seen the video. I called it Next Level Aquascaping, little clickbaity. But what it was literally doing next level aquascaping. I was aquascaping above the tank, and I showed how to make from outside, plants in it, and let the humidity, moisture roots eventually start going into the tank as a living filter. It's another product I'm thinking. I don't know. I know YouTube's not moving up to me. I'm not on any other platforms or nothing. So
yeah. Well, I know we could probably keep on going on for a little bit longer, but I think we're going to wrap it up. Unfortunately, I got to go to work. So I just want to thank you so much for giving me your time and taking the time to explain to me, answer my questions more than anything else. This was a little bit of a selfish live stream because I had a lot of questions that I needed answered, and you really got to them. So I do appreciate you taking the time to do that. Hopefully, the people that watch also had some similar questions and were able to get those answered. But again, thank you so much. I do appreciate you finally reaching out and putting this together. It's something I was really looking forward to, and obviously it didn't disappoint. Yeah. So I thank you so much for that, and I thank everybody that's been here with us and continues to support me day after day. A lot of this is possible because of the people that continue to support me. So thank you for that. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you guys. I am going to be live tomorrow. I'm going to be talking to the director of Amazon Research Center of Ornamental Fish. That's Dr. Anthony's right-hand man, but we are going to be in Spanish. My idea is to be able to have that conversation with him, and then I'm going to invite Dr. Anthony to do the English side of that same interview and kind of have him talk about some of the same things that I'll be talking with Carlos tomorrow. But with that being said, enjoy the rest of your week, and